Accenture is a stock I find interesting for a couple different reasons. I mean, we can see it's only up 81% over the last 5 years, but that's still not terribly bad, as the S&P 500 is only up about 90% over the last 5 years, although it gets better if we zoom out to the last decade, right? Since early 2015, which is basically where we're at last decade, it's up to 362 from 90, right? That is a good performance. The S&P 500 is only up 240% over the last decade. So this stock, actually it's closer to 200, but this stock is clearly outperforming the S&P 500 over the last decade fairly dramatically, and over the last 5 years it's still basically on pace for that, right? So looking at its valuation at PE, it's at about 31.5 PE and about 28 forward PE, which is a bit more expensive than the S&P 500, which is at about 27, and its forward PE is about 23-ish. So this stock is priced up compared to the S&P 500. However, this is a stock, like we mentioned, over the last decade, has been consistently outperforming the S&P 500. Maybe not so much on the 5-year, but like we said, on the 10-year. I forgot to mention also the dividend is good. It's about 1 2/3, while the S&P 500 pays about 1 1/3 dividend every year. So this stock has clearly been outperforming the S&P 500. It has done well. It has done better than average. Its industry, it does IT service stuff. I'm not going to dive all into the details of what they do in this video. I don't necessarily have time for that. However, I would recommend you look it up if you're interested in that. But yeah, just generally they do IT stuff. They're one of the larger players in the world. Clearly at a $226 billion market cap. This is not a small company. It's one of the largest companies in the world, not like, 3 trillion like the Apples and the Nvidias of the world, but it is still a very, very large company. Another interesting thing is they're based out of Ireland, right? So that is one thing to factor into the stock, right? Specifically if you're American. I'm sure there's probably a few people who are Irish or maybe from the EU watching this video. It's a bit different, but for us Americans, which is the majority of my audience, it does have a bit of a barrier for us to invest in the stock, just a bit. It's not as much if it was like, with TSM, for example, in Taiwan, it's a bit more difficult, but still it factors in to, American stocks are just easier for us to get. Also, just historically, if you look where market cap is centralized, United States companies generally will outperform their European counterparts. Obviously not in every scenario. I really like ASML, for example. I also really like the company TSM. Neither of those are American companies. However, generally, I lean towards American companies for those reasons, right? But it's obviously if you are, from Europe or something like that, it's much easier. It's not as much of a thing to factor in for us Americans as we need to. So, like I said, the dividend, it's rising. It's good. PE, I like the valuation. We can look at what some other people have to say on this. Schwab really likes this stock in the short term. They think over the next year, it's going to be in the top 17% of all stocks performing over the next year, which is a really good valuation. The average stock in any given year goes up, a decent amount. So that would be a C rating. This is well above that, top 17%. They think it's going to do very well. I don't do 1-year outlooks. I do long term, right? Because anything can happen in any given year. I think for me personally, I would not mind holding this stock as a long-term hold. It seems relatively fairly valued, right? A little bit over S&P 500, but it's outperformed S&P 500 in the long term. And I like the industry. I like IT. I like tech. I have a lot of tech, but I do like it quite a bit. They also, according to this, have a wide economic moat. I honestly haven't done as much research into all the key industries they're in, or all the how many. I would need to know a little bit more of how deeply they're integrated into how many specific companies, because that's a big thing in factoring with this specific moat, right? So I would just default to what they say here. I don't always agree with Morningstar's economic moat ratings, which is why I'm hesitant to give one, but I would be surprised if I gave it anywhere below narrow rating on it, right? So there's 5 stars there. Buy, good ESG score, whatever your opinion is on that. So let's look a little bit of historically where the PE is at least over the last year and a half. Yeah, we're right in that range, maybe a little bit more. It got as low as 21, high as 28, low as 21, high as 31. And then normal PE somewhere between 25 and 34. So it was more expensive earlier in the year, right? In terms of PE, this is kind of on the upper end. So maybe this isn't screaming like, ooh, super cheap. Schwab thinks it is for whatever reason. They do. I think I like this stock as a long-term hold. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, this is just going to absolutely pop off in the next year or so, although it could. Who knows? I don't know that. So 18 of the 27 analysts are currently saying buy. So that's about roughly 2/3, right? A little less, a little more. But then there's 7 people saying hold, and then 2 dissenters who are saying, oh, sell or underperform. So maybe ask them what they think, but that's a pretty normal spread, maybe a bit above average, but probably for a company in their space, primarily tech, that's probably a pretty average rating. Yeah. So just to reiterate, I think this company, I think they're good. I think they're a good position. They're one of the larger players in the world, right? $226 billion market cap. They're in a space I like. They have performed historically well. They aren't cheap, but then again, you wouldn't expect them to be. But yeah, this isn't necessarily like, oh, screaming buy right now. But if you're planning to hold this company long term, I wouldn't mind doing that either personally. I personally don't right now. But it wouldn't be a stock I'm super against, right? Obviously not investment advice, do your own research, but this is a kind of overview of this specific stock. I think it should do well. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you left a like or subscribe. If you are new, I do daily stock content on this channel, and I notice whenever anyone subscribes, I often get a burst in views. YouTube realizes people like me, and then they recommend me out more. But anyways, I just appreciate you for watching the video, and I'll hope to catch you next time. Thanks for watching.